All right, my apologies for that live stream setup. I was trying to set it up on one device and stream it on another, and it didn't work. So we're getting this now. But anyway, I expected today that I'd be talking about the German schism, and I'm talking about that for just a short time today because it happened, and I'll probably talk about it in a later video. At the least, I will talk about it on EVTN in a few days. But their schism, they had 100 priests or so or give a blessing to LMNOP couples, and so the bishops didn't seem to care. Pope Francis didn't seem to care, and on Saturday they're giving communion to Protestants. A lot of the Germans will be doing that. So anyway, that's what's going on in Germany. Hopefully the background noise isn't too bad. I have a neighbor mowing grass. But what I do want to talk about today is that the USCCB sent a letter to the Vatican saying that they're going to discuss denying Biden communion. Now, if you'll think about that, how ridiculous is that? That you need to communicate with the Vatican and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. Because you're Catholic. That's something that you should do, is deny him communion. So I just want to read a few clips from this letter. In the Pillar, they commented on it like it was a really good thing. Like, oh, they said this and this and this, and it's going to be great. But for me, I think this is a bit of like, what are you thinking? Like, what are you doing? So this is from the CDF, and this, the CDF issued the document to the Germans that said, or not really the Germans, but to everyone that said, you can't give blessings to LMNOP couples. And so the CDF sent this letter back to the USCCB. Now, I think Gomez sent this as a courtesy, saying, hey, we were planning on discussing this. And just because they discuss it doesn't mean that anything's going to get done. And I think that's the consensus among a lot of people, is that they're not actually going to do anything. I'm going to read a little bit of this letter and just comment on it for a little bit. And you can read the letter. I'm going to link it in the description, and because the setup was problematic, that's not going to be available in the description for a little while. But check back after this live stream's over and you'll be able to find it. So the bishop sent the letter on March 30th, and the CDF said, thank you for the letter informing this congregation the bishops of the United States are preparing to address the situation of Catholics in public office who support legislation allowing abortion, euthanasia, or other moral evils. So right away, we can tell that this is really meant to be more of a seamless garment thing. I don't know if it's from Gomez, Archbishop Gomez, that he's saying, well, we're going to address not just abortion, but all this other stuff. So whether it's capital punishment, or whether it's companies who don't support efforts to save the environment, or whatever, regulations to save the environment, that's a moral evil. Well, and there's different degrees here. And so right away it looks like a seamless garment. He talked about Cardinal Ratzinger's 2004 letter to Cardinal McCarrick. He said this congregation respects Cardinal Ratzinger's stipulation that these principles were not intended for publication. So I don't know, like, what are they talking about here? They don't want Cardinal Ratzinger's, because Cardinal Ratzinger in that letter did say that pro-abortion politicians should be denied communion. It doesn't actually say anything about denying anyone communion. Oh, it does here. During the 2004 ad limina visits in which he refers to this letter, questions arose on several occasions concerning the reception of Holy Communion by Catholic politicians who supported the so-called right to choose an abortion. When the doctrinal note was discussed during these ad limina visits, it was clear there was a lack of agreement regarding the issue of communion among bishops. So this is where it mentions denying communion. They're saying, well, there's disagreement. And let me scroll down. It talks about the 2019 and 2020 visits, ad limina visits, and it says this congregation advised that dialogue among the bishops be undertaken to preserve the unity of the Episcopal Conference in the face of disagreements over this controversial topic. So we're going with unity over the doctrines of the Catholic faith. We're going with dialogue over the doctrines of the Catholic faith. You see a problem with that? And this is the same CDF that issued the statement that said that LMNOP couples cannot receive blessings. The Germans did it, and now they're telling the United States, oh, we need unity. So whenever Bishop McElroy or Cardinal Supich says, I don't think we should deny Biden communion, then are the other bishops going to be like, oh yes, unity. We need to come together, fraternity, dialogue, and we need to dialogue with Biden. And actually, it talks about dialogue here. So it recommends, the CDF recommends 2 stages of dialogue. The first stage of dialogue would take place among the bishops, so they could agree as a conference that the support of pro-choice legislation is not compatible with Catholic teaching. So that it refers to the support of abortion as pro-choice. I would actually use pro-abortion. That's just me. But anyway, it says that they need to agree as a conference. See, here's the problem. They're not going to, because we've seen it before. Bishop McElroy has said, let's not focus on abortion. Bishop Stowe. I don't know about Tobin and Supich. I know Tobin supported Biden. And then it said, what's the second part here? So it talks about it, coming to an agreement, which they won't. And then it says, after this agreement is reached, the bishops could then move to implement the second stage, which local ordinaries would reach out to and engage in dialogue with Catholic politicians within their jurisdictions who adopt a pro-choice position regarding abortion legislation, euthanasia, or other moral evils as a means of understanding the nature of their positions and their comprehension of Catholic teaching. So which bishops do you think would be bold enough to reach out to these politicians? Strickland? Paprocki? I don't know. I can't think of too many others. Maybe you can name a few. But who would even reach out to them for dialogue? We're not even talking about excommunication, which is what should have happened already. Let's see here. In their jurisdictions, within their jurisdictions. Archbishop Gregory, is he going to reach out to Biden? I don't know. What about Archbishop Cordileone? Is he going to reach out to Pelosi? That's an interesting topic, because Archbishop Cordileone has become increasingly outspoken in favor of pro-life. I'd like to see him stand up. I don't expect him to, but I'd like to see it. Let's excommunicate someone. This stuff, I mean, any of this stuff we're talking about here is completely against Catholic Church teaching, and these people should have been excommunicated long ago. So what was I looking at here? Okay, so they talk about adopting a pro-choice position regarding abortion, euthanasia, or other moral evils. So what is a pro-choice position on other moral evils? Would it be like animal cruelty? Like there's no see, and this is where the seamless garment comes in again. I mean, this is ridiculous. Okay, so I'm going to move down, and I'm just going to scroll to the end of the document. It says, talks about a statement that the bishops should issue, and it said, it would be misleading if such a statement were to give the impression that abortion and euthanasia alone constitute the only grave matters of Catholic moral and social teaching that demand the fullest level of accountability on the part of the Catholics. So this is more seamless garment nonsense. We're talking about abortion. The bishops literally said, we're concerned with Joe Biden's pro-abortion stance. So then we got to focus on other moral evils. It makes absolutely no sense here. And I mean, I don't know. To me, this letter is basically saying, all right, we know, we see that you're going to try to go ahead with this, and the Vatican may not let them go ahead with it. But anyway, they're saying don't move ahead with this before taking into consideration the fact that you're receiving a lot of money from the government, And who knows how much Democrat politicians are paying these people? Who knows how much the Democrat politicians, the liberals, are funding the Vatican? Or how much money is the Vatican getting from the United Nations? How much money is the Vatican getting from pro-abortion groups? We've already seen that they might get some money from there. So this is, I mean, I don't know. I can't see this as a good thing. I see it in a lot of aspects as a neutral letter, but then there you can tell by the language in here that a lot of the quotes that I've mentioned that this is a little bit strange, very concerning, and are the bishops even going to consider talking about this at all after receiving this letter? And someone like Strickland, and the bishops like Strickland, Paprocki, Cordileone that I've mentioned. Um, Most of these bishops only get one chance to speak at the USCCB meeting. And so is Strickland going to take a stance in favor of pro-life, or is he going to talk about something else? Because there's going to be a number of topics, that they're going to discuss here. This is obviously the one that is the most focused on right now, at least in the media and among the heretics, like American Magazine, National Catholic Distorter. But what? How is this going to take place? What's going to happen? I don't know. And this is something, I mean, reading this letter, it doesn't give me a sense of optimism. And I think that the Vatican is going to follow up on this. Because remember at was it the November 2018 USCCB meeting where the Vatican basically hijacked that conference? Cardinal Supich stood up, and no one invited him to stand up and say anything, but he stood up and just invited himself to make a comment and said, "Hey, I got a message from the Vatican that said we're not to implement any new measures until we consult with them in like 6 months or something." So is that going to happen here? I mean, you can tell the bishops, a lot of them are very concerned about Biden's pro-abortion stance, including Gomez and Vigneron, the top two at the USCCB right now. They both issued statements saying that they were concerned about Biden's pro-abortion stance. So I don't know. I think that this is going to be just another thing where they talk and there's going to be disagreement, and so they're going to say unity, we need to stick together, collegiality, synodality, dialogue, all these Vatican II buzzwords and Pope Francis buzzwords, and nothing's going to get accomplished. It's up to us, the laity. It's up to us, the laity, to speak up, to let our bishops know, hey, we need you to have a strong voice in this church. And they're going to lead us, and we need to let them know that we're going to stand behind them if they do decide to speak up. If they don't decide to speak up, what's the point of being a bishop? Your diocese is losing money. You don't have any priests coming in. And so what are you going to do? Like, what are you going to do? You're going to close churches. People are going to hate you anyway. So why don't you speak up in favor of the Catholic faith? Because you're going to have a strong group of people. Look at Bishop Strickland. How many people are in his diocese, and how many people are strongly supportive of him online and the media? I know there's a lot of people that hate him in the media because he preaches the Catholic faith. But there's a group of us, and we're the laity. And so we need to let our voices be heard, demand that our bishops preach Catholicism. And thank you so much for watching, everyone. I'm going to post this link in the description below here in a few minutes. And we are the laity, and we will not be silent.